Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to be here today to preside over the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding with the British High Commission to establish a nature-based resilient protection along the coastal area, Namatakula Village. Ladies and gentlemen, you probably heard from D.S. Wycliffe that the Ministry of Waterways and Environment has been at the forefront since the establishment of Ministry of Waterways in 2017 and coming into being later that year with regard to protection of our coastal community as well as communities in the settlements and villages from issues regarding climate. Ladies and gentlemen, the population of the small island states, particularly in the Pacific and Caribbean to some extent as well, their lifestyle has been intertwined with waterways, with coastal areas. You study how the settlements and villages have established themselves, then you will see that their livelihood, their lifestyle, their activities with regard to agriculture or in-stream waterways or coastal activities are all intertwined with regard to their own growth and development. So at that particular point in time, some 80 years ago, 60, 70 years ago, their livelihood, their well-being was secured through waterways, through the coastal area. However, at that particular point in time, these communities never imagined that the very source of their livelihood could become or could pose a threat to their livelihood. Because at that particular point in time, no one thought about that there would be an issue arising out of changes to climate that could cascade down to the small, vulnerable island states and the communities who are living around this coastal area or along the waterways. The very source of their livelihood is now threatening their livelihood, threatening their existence. We have come across so many communities who have come to us and said that our burial grounds are being washed away. The case highlighted by Acting Director Operations of Namatakula Village is a case in point where the burial ground of that particular Namatakula community was being washed away. And as you know, for communities in the Pacific, their burial grounds provide a source of spiritual enlightenment, source of protection for the communities. And losing the burial ground means that they are losing part of their heritage. So any investment to protect the burial ground is not only protecting this community but also protecting the heritage of this community. We have seen burial grounds protruding in the ocean, which used to be the village grounds some 60 years ago, but have been washed away due to rising sea level. So you can see how the work of Ministry of Waterways and Environment is contributing towards protection of the heritage of our communities in the Pacific Island countries, and in this case, Fiji. So, Excellency, your investment, which may be a very minute small loose change for you. It's an investment, it's a very big investment for us, and it's an investment not only in terms of building a wall to protect the coastal community, but also protection of the heritage of this coastal community. So Excellency, we've come a long way. And today, international environmental groups are using our creation to showcase to the world that how we could build and provide protection to coastal communities, which is sustainable, which is building resilience to the current ecosystem, which is economical, and which will give ownership to the communities. You talked about, Excellency, about involving the private sector. I am saying, when you talk about environment, ecosystem, it's about involving the community. It will be sustainable. The moment the communities are involved, they will take ownership of that particular activity, that particular project. And yesterday, thanks to the leadership of P.S. Whiteley, the Director Environment, we had launched, we had awarded the first 17 recipient of our Jobs for Nature Rehabilitation Program, where we are providing a small amount of funding to community groups to undertake nature rehabilitation in their own area. We will not be taking a contractor or private sector to go and rehabilitate the nature in the area. We are mobilizing this community to do it. They will do the rehabilitation. They'll feel proud of the investment, the time they've done. They will want it to succeed, plus they're paid for it. Excellency, today we are very proud to watch this relationship with your High Commissioner, your High Commission, in providing protection to a community which has been requesting us to quickly mobilize our resources to protect them before they lose the valuable village front to rising seawater in Namatakula Village. We plan to undertake the establishment of a nature-based wall which comprises of the first line of defense being mangrove, the second line of defense being boulders, the third line of defense being a wall built out of clay soil, and the fourth line of defense would be vetiver grass planted on the wall. Excellency, the seawall that we establish is science-based. The first line of defense, mangrove, is once the mangrove is established, it will take about 2 years for its rooting to take its place. It is a lifelong barrier to any force, whether it's wave action or any impact that could come from the coast, from the sea. The second line of defense is boulder to assist the mangrove until such time the mangrove takes place, to cushion the impact of the wave till it reaches the bank. So the boulders would be about 8 meters in length. The third line of defense is the wall, which is developed through piling these either rotten rocks or soft stone or third clay. These are the three clay soil. These are the three materials we use. We are not looking at one-off pressures or shocks such as a tidal wave.
Joshua Wycliffe, Permanent Secretary for the Ministry for Waterways and Environment, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be with you, and I'm very glad we're bringing forward this exciting project. The Permanent Secretary has recalled the genesis of it in a conversation at the time of the climate photography exhibition that we held at the the Grand Pacific Hotel earlier this year. The Honourable Minister then explained to me his approach, and an approach that was approach to coastal protection that was both greener and significantly cheaper than models being used previously. I thought that sounded a really exciting initiative, a really exciting approach, and something that I felt that we would very much like to support if we could. So I'm very glad that we are going to be able to support through the ministry the construction of this eco-sea wall at Namatakula Village. Namatakula, like other coastal settlements, faces increasing challenges from coastal erosion, from sea level rise, and so on. And those are things that have an impact on the village, on the physical structure of the village itself, and they also have an impact on wider issues in terms of local biodiversity, of food security. And if we can help to address those issues, then I think that will be a really worthwhile achievement. And what I'm very pleased with is not just that we're helping address those issues, which obviously matter to the people in the village, to the local population, but that we are doing that in a way that in a way that links back to the big global discussion about nature-based solutions and where nature-based solutions fit into a number of things. I mean, one of those is the whole issue of addressing the problem of climate change, where addressing the problem of climate change, which obviously is a huge priority for us as we approach COP26 in Glasgow in Scotland in November. But it goes beyond the issue of climate change. And just to quote a couple of major studies, which I expect a lot of you will be aware of, which sort of illuminate this at the strategic or the theoretical level. Already in, I think, 2006, there was a report produced for the British government by a team of economists headed by Sir Nicholas Stern, which is known as the Stern Review of the Economics of Climate Change. And that's certainly for the UK, and I think globally that had an impact on the way people think about the economic aspects of what the problems we face. And one of the things which I still remember having, I haven't read this since 2006, but I did read the whole report then. One of the things I remember very powerfully from that report was the chapter about deforestation, reforestation, and afforestation, which is arguing that, more than arguing, demonstrating that one of the most cost-effective ways of addressing greenhouse gas reduction was through protecting forests, restoring forests where they've been damaged, and if it's done in the right way, creating new forested areas. And that was a relatively early example in terms of that kind of international discussion of the recognition of the importance of working with nature on these issues. There was another major report, again commissioned by the British government, which was published earlier this year, which is known as the Dasgupta report on the economics of biodiversity. And again, this was a report by a team of economists looking to try and evaluate in economic and financial terms the losses that come from damage to nature and setting those against the costs of investing in protecting and restoring nature. And the conclusion of that, at the economic level, the conclusion of that was that financially, economically, we do much better by protecting nature. That the feedback in terms of long-term future value into the economy is much greater than the costs that have to be invested. But at a more philosophical level, the conclusion of that report was that we need to rethink the way we relate to nature. We need to understand that human society and human economies are not outside nature, but are a part of it. And that affects the way we value what we do, but it also should affect the way we operate at a very material and physical level. And bringing that down from the macro theoretical level, which is where this report was operating, to the local and community level, what we should be looking at is exactly projects and approaches like the one that we are talking about today. It will be interesting to see how it goes. I think every one of these, every project like this is to a certain extent an experimental project. One needs to learn, to feedback the experience and to keep the project. And I know that is something that the ministry are doing as they move forward with approaches like this. But I hope that this is a project which is going to prove of real value to the community. As I said, in terms of reducing the risks to the village from coastal erosion, sea level rise, and so on, but also in supporting a renewal of biodiversity and with the kind of impacts that the Permanent Secretary was outlining, also on food security for the village. I also wanted just to respond very briefly to something the Permanent Secretary said about involvement of the private sector. That's something which, both in our approach to climate change and in our approach to biodiversity, we see as being absolutely vital. The private sector has important roles to play in all sorts of ways. And at risk of quoting reports, I was also very interested to read a report which was published by the UN, I think it's UNDP, but UN only a few weeks ago, which was titled Banking on Protected Areas, about the value that protected areas can bring to communities. It included the study of protected areas around, I think it's the Namatakula Islands. Also with recommendations of finding new and creative ways to link in the private sector. So I certainly think from the UK's point of view, this is that bringing in the private sector in the appropriate way, which strengthens protections and strengthens and maintains biodiversity, is absolutely the right way to go. Having said that, there's also obviously there's a role in much of this for civil society as well. I think it's one of those issues where essentially all parts of society need to be coming together. So, returning to close to home, I'm very pleased that we are able to provide funding to support the Ministry of Waterways and Environment in establishing a nature-based solutions coastal defence in Namatakula Village. The objective, as we've said, of the project is to reduce the vulnerability of the area's coastal inundation and erosion and create enabling conditions for scaling up and replicating the project impact beyond the immediate target area. I've already outlined what we hope will be the benefits of that project, and I have been pleased to hear earlier this morning from the Honourable Minister about some of the plans for further similar projects that the Ministry has. So I hope this will be something on which we can continue to cooperate going forward. There will be other opportunities for cooperation with the UK, including under a fund which was recently announced by the British government, known as the Blue Planet Fund. That's a fund which will be spending £500 million over the coming 5 years around the world to support programmes strengthening and protecting the sustainability of the global ocean. And I know that even this first year there will be aspects of it which will be working with Fiji, and I would expect that to continue and expand both with Fiji and with others in the Pacific region over the coming years. With that, I will conclude and would like to offer my best wishes and thanks to the Ministry for the cooperation so far, and best wishes for the great success of this exciting project. Thank you very much.
His Excellency, I just wanted to give a background.